Good afternoon, everybody. I see we have about a handful, 10, 12 people on here thus far. A few more here in the waiting room I will be admitting. And welcome aboard. We are here today for our annual Sales Lab Sales Mastery Masterclass event. That's a mouthful. There's a lot of M's in there. I just realized when I was saying that. And it's funny because I've been saying that so much, but I don't think I did it all in one sentence like that. But yeah, good to have all you guys here. I think if anybody's here, they either, got to the registration page or they, messaged me directly and saw one of my posts. So you kind of know, who this is for, what we're all about. But let's just really start off as to make the best of everybody's time and to really, so we can allot the most time to delivering value and actual training rather than speaking about stuff. Let's just start off with a little background and intro. So we're going to have a few team members on from our Sales Lab crew here, but primarily Jesse and I are the founders of this company and the co-owners, and he and I together have closed over 31.5 million in high-ticket deals ourselves, not to mention the sales teams we've trained, the number of reps we've placed, and on and on and on. We'll talk about that a little more, but Jesse, why don't you just start off before I go into more about me, because I've already been yapping, and give a little of your background, maybe tell these folks how we came together and how our brands kind of come to fruition.
Yeah, it's been about 3 years now. I was leaving the upsell process of what I was doing in e-com, looking to do something a bit more mainstream, a bit more ethical per se. And so I was doing research, and a couple of big industries back then, businesses. Ray worked for one of them. Won't name them, but you guys can probably figure out who that is. It was just inquiring, looking at stuff, and basically trying to reverse engineer anything I could see as I transitioned more to online individually. And got a phone call from Ray one day. I'm down at spring training down in Arizona watching games, having a good time. As you can see, he's a Red Sox fan. We BS'd about it, became kind of tight-knit with it. No hard pressure on anything, followed up, and I started my own thing. And I reached out to Ray and said, hey, man, you want to join forces? And he said yes. And so we kind of went from there. Put together a couple different offers. We own 3 right now. We've done 2 7-figure businesses and 1 8-figure projected this year with Audience Lab, which is our tech and data platform. Different thing, but of a company we also own. And as Ray said, collectively we have about 30 million plus in high ticket sales closed between the two of us. He's a yin to my yang and vice versa. Ray's really, really good on the front end, DM setting, triage, qualification, just really, really good at understanding when there's a engage. And then myself, I'm more on the back end, the closing side of things, tie downs, more aspects of our AAA frame, which you guys will learn more about. So again, just a little background on us, but yeah, I've been rolling with Ray for 3 years. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I enjoy doing these type of events with him. Just good to get with like-minded people and get out there and be with winners.
Good point. The yin to our yang, and that's true. I do a lot more of the front end, setting up sales processes, triage, first engagement, and Jesse is just your typical badass closer. I've seen him close packages from our first offer, Jesse, we launched in. Actually, ironically enough, time does fly. This April makes 4 months when we first had that conversation, 4 years in April when we had that conversation and decided to partner, and we landed our first client in August of that year. And that ever since then, we've grown to the brands and stuff that Jesse had mentioned in the other companies and what we've done with Sales Lab. But yeah, it's been 4 years as of this coming month, Jesse. So time does fly. Right. And as I said, our first offer, he and I, we had a little 2-man consultancy. We launched just he and I when we partnered in 2020. We had a $4,200 and $5,800 offer, depending on what they needed. And just us two grew that from, by December that year, we were at consistent 40K months. Just 2 guys, no ads, no nothing, just organic outreach, Facebook, and just helping people and dropping value. And then we merged in with our third business partner, Adam, who is the co-founder and the primary founder of the PDocs method, which I now run, as well as Audience Lab, which is our larger brand. So just to add a little more context, but yeah, Jesse and I, like he said, I was working as a sales specialist for a large digital consultancy at the time, doing about 20 million a year in revenue. And Jesse was one of my outbound calls. He was down at spring training. We started bullshitting about baseball, as he said. And, from there, we stayed in contact. And I think, Jesse, you saw a post saying I was leaving that position and you DM me and then I hit you up and I called you back and I'm like, hey, I remember talking to you, what you had going on. And we decided to kind of join forces and all the rest is history. So yeah, good overview and good point. I don't think I'm going to waste everybody's time with the slides of like who we've worked with, what we've done in the past. I'd be happy to jump into that if somebody wants, but I want to go into more of the value we're going to drop and things along that line. So I'm going to start off with kind of going over an overview of our Sales Lab brand and products and some of the integral aspects to how we operate with sales. One thing that we are really driven on is integral, ethical, solution-based sales. So we all have perceptions of salesmen, right? That sleazy guy at a used car lot that's going to sell you a lemon that's going to die 30 days down the road or what have you, right? But there's also very great salesmen that, you know, provide services and things we all need. I mean, everybody's perception of sales can be what it is, but we wouldn't have anything we have right now if somebody didn't sell it to you. This computer I'm on, this pen I'm going to take notes with. I mean, somebody sold it to me in some way, shape, or form. And there's always that phrasing, people hate to be sold, but they love to buy. And that's true. So if you can come from a solution or an ethical based or an integral based sales, much better than some of the psychological or strong arm tactics that some other brands teach. And then you hear buyer's remorse and chargebacks and people aren't happy and you don't feel great about it. So I think there's two big differences in terms of the overall philosophy behind sales. And we try to, you know, stay on the side that we think is the right way of doing things. So I'm going to dive in and bring that up on my screen now. And we're going to go through, oops, I'm still on the wrong screen, aren't I? This is the slides that I said I didn't need to show. Hold on one second. Malfunction with screen share. You run digital companies, you can't even screen share right. That's both Jesse and I's crutch. Neither of us are super techie. And it's another point you don't need to be successful in this space. But as I just talked about, kind of the core tenets of our brand that we feel must be followed for, and you know, no matter what throughout the process and how to treat prospects is number one, telling is not selling. And before I go into that, Jesse, you love this phrase. I think you coined it. Talk about it a little.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when we're talking to individuals, you know, coming through looking for help, you know, they're on a high ticket offer, they have their own offer, building a sales team, etc. You're going to find that basically a lot of people are coming through and just telling what they do, how they can help them, what it is, how it's going to benefit that person across the other side of the phone or the Zoom screen. And at the end of the day, you know, selling really isn't telling. It's asking questions, opening questions, understanding what the person is looking for and providing a solution for that. So you guys will see that our method is really just having an open and honest conversation realistically about where you are and where you want to be and asking those who, what, when, where, why, and when, and really driving it home and tying people down with their own words to hold them accountable to make the right decision for themselves at the end of the conversation. So you really see, again, that we're not telling anybody shit about what we do, how we can help them, how our stuff is better, what it's going to do, how much money they're going to make. It's really driven on what that individual on the other side of the screen wants, what they're looking for, what they're trying to achieve, what they've tried, why they've not gotten there, and providing the solution that can best fit them and tie down with their own words. So again, we'll see that as we go.
Can everybody mute? I'm trying to find out who that is.
Who's on that? I can take that call with us. L'Oreal one.
It's Jake.
Sorry, my mic was on.
Oh yeah, can you just mute if you don't mind?
I love my
Thank you,
family.
appreciate it. Okay, Jesse.
Yep, no, as I said, it's just going to be really driven down to really understanding, again, asking the right questions and tying people down with their own words, isolating it. So again, you know, the thing that I love to say is like, you know, at the end of the day, if you're talking to someone for the first or the second time, realistically, you're not going to believe shit that comes out of their mouth. But if you say it, you damn well believe it's going to be true. So it's about positioning, asking the right questions to tie people down with their own words versus you telling them how much more beneficial this is going to be. Because again, they're not going to believe anything that comes out of your mouth. You look money hungry, you look greedy, you look salesy, you look sleazy. And we do it in a way, again, where there's no pressure, even if it's not today, right? We'll position it so whatever's best for the prospect and the client, that's how we drive our conversations and frame. And it comes across completely different than 95% of the space.
Yep, very well said. As I always like to say, one thing, you know, one of the things we do being that we train reps and also place them and have a done for you build out where more established companies hire Jesse, I, and our sales lab team internally. We have Mark, we have Daniel, a couple other of my team members on the call here. Is to, one of the things we do a lot is call audits and role play situations, right? Things like that. And as I always say, and what you hear reps, and I've heard this on so many calls, is everybody wants to say, hey, Jesse, you need my offer to get to this point, right? I think you need my offer so you can get those extra 20 clients per month, that extra 10K per month, right? But what we always say is, whatever you want to scream or say to a prospect you think you need to do to get the sale, there's always a way to ask the question to get it to come out of their mouth. And that's really what this boils down to in simplistic form. If you can get the prospect to say, hey, Ray, I need your product to get to where I am, it's a lot better than me telling him he needs it. So that's really the crux of it. And I don't have to go much deeper than that. Simple little breakdown. So we also will talk as we go in more depth about our AAA framework for overcoming objections. So I think what differs from this and a lot of, I've been through sales training, I've worked with other collaborators, I kind of know what's out there in the market. And what you normally see is very circumstantial or situation responses like, hey, the prospect says this, say this, and they're almost scripted or, again, programmed. Whereas if you can just have an organic conversation, no matter what the objection is, it could be logistics, finances, timing, burned in the past, I don't trust you guys, right? All those things, you could use one kind of simple framework to always have in mind so you know how to overcome those. And we'll dive into that a little deeper. But a quick little example would be with like, hey, Ray, I've been burned by a program in the past, right? We've all got that one in some kind of sales call if you've done sales calls, or if you're a business owner selling your own product or service, right? And it's like, hey, man, I totally agree where you're coming from, man. And it's sorry to hear that you've been burned in the past. You know what? I fully understand that there's a lot of agencies or coaches over providing and under delivering in this space. But let me ask you something, Mr. Prospect. Did you see some differences in what we just walked through and how we get results as opposed to what we tried in the past? And that coach, you said that, over promise and under delivered, right? And break it back down so they're talking about how your program differentiates. And when you've customized the pitch right, as we talk about, you're not going to get objections before the pitch, so this would come after, obviously. You're going to be able to handle that in a way that they're going to be able to start talking about, yeah, right, well, you're right, you do offer more support, and your curriculum is a much higher level. I actually believe in this strategy as opposed to the last one where I was a little iffy on it. Cool. So that being said, is being burned in the past really a reason to not move forward and try to get your business to its goals? Right. So, you can always use that formula, and we can go through some more examples, which leads right into doing this properly. We can't overcome objections or close deals properly. A was telling isn't selling. B is tie downs. And Jesse, I want you to take this first again before I chime in.
Sorry, I was muted. So I'd say, tie downs realistically, again, asking a question to get someone to kind of, drive the conversation where you want it to go. So for example, like Ray said, like, hey, I totally get it, understand that is unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that, right? Now, that being said, what did you like about that program that you were in? I like blah, blah, blah. Okay. What did you not like? Oh, I didn't like this, this, and this. Okay. So is it safe to say you're looking for X, Y, and Z at this time? Yes. Okay. Is there anything else that you think would be beneficial from what you've not had? Well, I would like this, this, and this, and this. Okay. So to my understanding, you didn't like this about this program. You're looking for this, and you feel if you had these extra elements, that would be what's best for your business moving forward. Is that correct? There's your tie down. Yes, it is. Okay. Now, that being said, if you're able to find a platform that can give this to you where you feel it's going to make you successful, would you have any hesitation at moving forward at that time to benefit your business? No, not at all. If that was in place and I can see that it was a right fit for me, absolutely, I'd be moving forward with it. So I'm isolating it, asking the questions to understand what they like, what they didn't like, what they're looking for. And then I use their words of what they said with a question saying, yes, if I have that, I want it. And if it's in front of me and it's going to make sense for me, I am moving forward 100%. So that is how you tie people down specifically. That's just, again, a very basic type of example. But as you can see, it's really driving it, breaking it down. Now we call it chunk down a little more, chunk down a little bit more, isolate what it is they're looking for, ask about it, tie it down with their own words, and then reaffirm it one more time with a tie down to fully confirm it.
100%. I'm glad that you kept it basic. That was a great example of a tie down. And what I always like to say is we're tying somebody down to the words that came out of their own mouth as well. right? So another way you can use these, like when you get later to objections, when you've done the discovery and situation phase, right, and ask the proper questions there, and we're going to go through that framework here in not very long at all when we get into kind of the closing call script or framework that we utilize. But when you ask the right questions, you're going to find out, like, it's going to come out of their mouth that, hey, Ray, I need to make an extra 10K a month so I can put my kid in a private school, so I can take my wife on trips, so I can, whatever it is, when you do the situation right, whether it's a personal thing or whether it's a business thing. Hey, Ray, I need to solve this or we're going to be out of business in the next 2 to 3 years if I don't get this problem solved. Then later, when you get to the end of the call and they're like, well, I'm not sure if now's the right time. Well, didn't you just tell me earlier in the conversation that if you didn't get this problem fixed, Jesse, your business would probably be closed in 2 years? So how long are you willing to push this off and risk that of happening? Right. So I'm just asking him a question of something he said earlier. And then he kind of starts to realize the urgency of, shoot, I did say that. I do need to get it fixed. What am I really waiting on? Right. Because a lot of objections we're going to get, I always go through a quick little exercise in my head I call RBO. Is this just a reflex objection, like 10K and a guy falls out of his chair? Right. That's a reflex. Or is it a brush off? And that's kind of an F off. That's a call me later. That's it. I'll email you. I got to talk about it with my spouse. That's a brush off. And then there's an actual objection. The money physically isn't there, Ray. I'm traveling all week and there's no way I can dive into the curriculum. So now's not the right time. Timing is important. Like those are logistical or real objections. So you always got to understand the difference. And what great tie downs do is they run right through the first two. And then they also get you through the third one when you get really, in depth into this. So
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Let me add on to that. So with the tie downs, guys, this is something where a lot of people honestly shy away from it because they're afraid to get an answer to a question that they don't want. But realistically, if you lean into tie downs, it's going to be the most effective and efficient way for you to actually genuinely help the person on the other side of the line. And there's nothing wrong if it's not the right time, they can't afford it. But we're going to basically cross those barriers when we get there. This is just allowing you to eliminate those bullshit comments, those brush offs, so you can hold them accountable at the end of the conversation to where it literally only is a money issue, if anything at all. Or again, if they said it's not the right fit, then you don't get to that point. It is what it is, and you part ways as friends, not a big deal. But if I'm able to sit there and have you tell me, I want this. If I have this, I'm moving forward. If it makes sense, I'm going to do it. This is exactly what I'm looking for. I'm confident this can get my business where it needs to go. Well, then how in the hell is someone going to fucking tell me no at the end of the conversation outside of one thing and one thing alone, which is money? And as you guys will see here too, we'll kind of get into the financial breakdown, which is our bread and butter. You'll understand that a little bit more. Right now, I've role play this multiple times, but we want to drive everything to one objection and one objection only, which is money, because we have a very, very efficient way, which is in the best interest of the prospect, to break down an understanding. And even if it's not today, where they want to be moving forward and breaking down to get a game plan in place to do so. And that financial breakdown breaks down everything so we can make it make sense today, tomorrow, whenever it is, and really understand where they're at. So if there's a 2 pay or a 3 pay, you're not just sitting there saying, oh yeah, sure, I can't afford it. Okay, well, we can do a 2 pay. Well, I can't afford that. We can do a 3 pay. You just have zero leverage on what it is. So again, these tie downs eliminate everything. So when you get to the end of the conversation, you know exactly where they are and you can hold them accountable with their own words. Because again, if I said all this to you, I'm going to feel like a complete idiot telling you no at the end of the conversation because I have no reason as to why.
100%. Well said. Well said. And you're right. We will dive into that a little deeper. And some of the stuff we just went through and talked about is actually exactly the kind of verbiage that's right here. Jesse just runs through it like second nature, even though it's probably the same verbiage that's right here in our thing, which ties into kind of number 3 or C on this list, in terms of what's really important with us, the reps we train, and how we build out sales teams is ethical sales, right? I've talked about that a little, but things to avoid, like trying to force someone to make a decision, selling somebody before finding out if it'll even work for them. Some people are like, oh, the guy's got the money, I'll pitch him. Doesn't even mean that he's a good fit for the program or he can get results. Like there's all kind. I wouldn't want my reps my reps, whether it's in my business or, training for other clients, I wouldn't want them to be closing people that we don't think it's a good fit for the program. That's just not a good business decision for a number of reasons. Sounding sales, which we'll talk about some more, is certainly likely to make them have a negative experience or relive a negative experience, right? So all things like that, and we'll get into that a little more. But the Sales Lab framework is what's going to really be important. And what starts with the framework is a sales process. A lot of people really overlook this. And just, you got to say, in all the businesses that we build internally, and more importantly, or more prevalent, I should say, in the client's business that we work with and we build out sales teams, I mean, isn't the number one problem always the process, and it's just not set up right?
100%, 99.9% of the time, that is what it is.
Is what we dive into first. So, guys, just so you understand, and I think some of you guys know, but we work with people in a few different capacities. We work with kind of entry level sales reps looking to get into appointment setting, and things like that. We work with phone professionals or Zoom professionals that are looking to be high ticket closers, closing 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 50K packages, and getting a lofty commission off that. We work with kind of the intermediate specialists. So what I want to do before I dive into the sales processes and everything like that is just make sure everybody on the call has the understanding. People use different terminology, different companies, different lingo, whatever, just so you'll follow what we're talking about and kind of the way I define these roles. What you hear a lot in this space is people talk about SDRs, and that just stands for a sales development representative. That's kind of all encompassing. Everything else I'm going to talk about in the other 4 or 5 titles all fall within SDR. So just remember, SDR is the most commonly used, but it's also the vaguest kind of position. You could be an SDR and kind of do any of these things, technically speaking. So it's kind of like a hybrid role, for lack of a better phrase. But there's what's called setters or setters/specialists. And I kind of separate the two, but a lot of people kind of intermingle the two as the same. I kind of look at setters as more people doing messenger outreach, organic outreach via Facebook. And I look more at specialists as phone reps and triage experts that are going to be your first face-to-face interaction with your client and your brand. So that's kind of how I look at it. And then on the back end, we have what are called closers or advisors, depending on the offer. You'll usually call them a closer as a business owner, but you're going to present them as an advisor to your prospects, just because it looks and sounds more professional. And they would rather get advice than feel like they're being closed, right? From the perception standpoint. But guys, if you're following along, if you could just do me a favor, if what I just went through with the roles and what we've covered thus far before we get into some more articulate stuff, if this is making sense, just please drop me a 1 in the chat so I know. And if you're not really following along, or if we're going over your head a little, just put a 2 just so I kind of know and can judge the pulse of where you guys are at. That'd be appreciative. Jesse, anything you want to add on to the titles or any other acronyms you want to touch on before I dive into the slides and the process here?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to touch base on everything here. And if you guys have questions, let us know. Obviously, throughout, you can drop messages and we'll answer them accordingly. But other than that, yeah, let's get to it.
Cool. So what we've built internally initially and installed into all of our 3 companies that Jesse mentioned, and now have done in dozens and dozens, and geez, I can't even know the amount of businesses we built out sales processes internally, but quite a few. And what we use is what's called a micro commitment sales process. So this is what's called the usual method, and what most of us are doing or a part of if we're on a sales team or have seen in the past. And I'll walk through many reasons why this is dated and not effective. But what most people do is step 1 is engagement, get someone to raise their hand. So whether you're running an ad, whether you're running an email campaign, whether you're running a piece of content on a social media, whatever you're doing to get someone to raise their hand and say they're interested. Then we're going to take them to either a triage conversation with a specialist, as I mentioned, or in some businesses, a pre-application form. What I've found working with multiple businesses, and I know Jesse would back me up 100% on this, is I highly recommend the triage process here, with an actual sending it to an actual rep than an application form. The application form can work in certain models and does. And I'll just be honest, they're more done for you, they're more analytical, and they're more revenue driven offers. So if everything is just about price and analytics and numbers, you might be able to get away with an application form because you'll know by the metrics if they qualify. But if there's any extenuating factors and things like that, you know what I mean? If it's more of a transformation offer, if it's not a direct ROI, if it's not a super analytical B2B offer, I would much rather go to a triage call, and pretty much always, but in certain businesses, the application form works. But regardless, we're going to get them to raise their hand. We're going to pre-qualify either through a 15-minute conversation or an application form, and then we're going to book them into a sales call. That's the usual method. I'd be willing to guess if this is what you're a part of right now, maybe just do up like the hand raise emoji or something in the chat. I'm kind of interested to see, but I'm guessing that most people's process or what they've seen or what they know is kind of like this. Now, a few of the issues with this is we start thinking to ourselves when we're either not getting show-ups or we're not getting closed deals or the metrics aren't hitting. We start thinking to ourselves like, hey, was it the call or the messaging? Did I push too hard or not enough on the call? Was the prospect even a good fit? So there's all these variables, but we can't really track it back to, hey, I got to tweak step one of my sales process or two. We're always guessing, right? And building out sales teams, metrics are very important, including or not limited to, but the big metrics, right? Our show up percentages, our close percentages, and our qualified call percentages. Like those are the three main things that we start to track. I mean, I can't tell you the number of different metrics I track in different offers, but those are the three that are super important, especially initially, and the three that are most closely correlated to revenue and profitability for sales teams, businesses, as well as reps. If your prospects aren't showing up, you're not going to close as many deals. If your close percentage sucks, you're not going to get as many commissions as you would if you had an average to above average close percentage, so on and so forth. So the new sales process, or the one that we use and which works much better, is what's called a 6-step micro commitment process. So in the old way, you guys, step 1, 3, and 6 were the old way, okay? Which means numbers 2, 4, and 5 are the new ones that were not in the old process. And I'll dive through this super quickly. Then I'll see if Jesse has anything to elaborate on. And as Jesse mentioned, you guys can type questions in the chat as we go, or please, I prefer jot them down and just ask at the end so we can explain and give you a more detailed answer or explanation, maybe specific to you, than we could possibly drop in the chat there. But so step 1 doesn't change, right? We're still getting engagement. We do this internally, just so you guys all know, through really 3 main means. We use a couple other lead gen sources, but we're primarily paid advertising, MVP, which we call mutually beneficial outreach campaigns. Generally speaking, they're organic, they're referrals, or they're through very direct LinkedIn cold email campaigns, which ties into the last one, cold email, we do pretty often. So not to say we don't use other little lead gen sources, but I would say, Jesse, to grow all 3 of our businesses, it's really been those 3 things. Would you agree?
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. So we're going to get engagement however we do, right? I just mentioned a few. You guys can use or think of 5, 10 others, I'm sure. What a lot of people don't do is assign a new frame, which is basically saying, hey, man, I opted in, and we can use any offer, but one of the most common we see is my Facebook ads aren't converting, or I need to start running Facebook ads and I don't know how. Something to do with like paid media, paid ads. I don't know. That's just a very common, vague one, right? And for instance, if I have somebody coming into a business assessment program or an analysis or a conversation or an ad, whatever it is, and they just told me, hey, my ads suck, or hey, I need to start running ads and yada, 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 I'm going to kind of assign a new frame there and say, hey, a lot of people think they need to start running paid ads right now, and you very well may. But have you ever looked at your offer and your conversion rate, right? Why would I want to pour more leads and more people into my ads and turn on the faucet if I'm only converting at 3%? Wouldn't it make more sense to tighten up your sales process, convert at 20%, and then turn on the faucet and drive in the leads? So I'm going to do that either in my ad, in whatever they see after my ad, whatever I'm doing with my copy, my video, my content. I'm assigning a new frame. So they're like, oh, shoot, what Ray said just totally makes sense. Nobody's really mentioned that part. They all just said, yeah, I'll run your ads for you. No one really said, go back and look at this. How do I find out more? And that's kind of what happens in their brain when we assign a new frame. It also helps you build more credibility and authority, as we all talk about that know, like, trust that happens in sales, right? So that's a couple things it does. Anything else you'd like to add to the frame aspect, Jesse?
No, it's good.
Cool. And then we would take it to step 3, and Jesse's not going to elaborate much on these because these are my cup of tea and what I do in all the businesses. So he's like, Ray, you already said it, right? But step 3 is still the same thing. Again, I highly prefer a 15-minute triage phone specialist, and we have a framework and a script and an outline for how to handle those calls. We'll run through that briefly here today. Or people, I'm going to offer some of these resources. So anything I mentioned that we have or I mentioned, if you guys want a triage script, put something in the chat here, and we'll make sure to send you over the PDF or the Google Doc or wherever I have it on. But yeah, so we're going to do this. And there's really 2 main objectives on the triage process, guys. Number 1 is the qualifying, right? Are they a good fit for my offer? Are they in the right niche and industry? Do they suffer from the problem I solve? Whatever that may be. And number 2, and a lot of people overlook this, or if they don't overlook this, they definitely don't have it number 2 as their objective of a triage, is to get a soft yes in terms of a financial commitment, right? And we'll talk about that on the script, but it's simply like, after we know they're a good fit and we've gone through a little bit of the pre-qualifying and we start to recommend a sales call and the second call toward the end of the call, it'd be something along the lines of like this. Hey, Jesse, now I set you up for your next call with Mark Thursday at 2 p.m. Barring everything makes sense on that call and you see a clear path into fixing your Facebook ads and doing so profitably, is there anything that would stop us from moving forward at the end of that call, right? And that's a soft yes. And the reason I ask, is there anything stopping you from moving forward, is I want them to actually pause and think. there's a quick flip on the verbiage where like, hey, if everything makes sense, would you be willing to move forward? And people would say yes. And they don't really think. They're just like, I want them to think and maybe give me an objection there. Well, Ray, I don't think I can move forward on that specific day just because my funds aren't in line. Maybe I need a business partner, maybe a spouse, maybe something that didn't come up on the triage call. And now I can say, okay, great. So you and your spouse make those decisions together. I totally commend that, man. So is she able to attend as well at that time on Friday at 2? Or should we set another time when you could both be there? And now I don't have to make my sales rep go through a 2-call process because the spouse wasn't on there. So all kind of things can happen, but it also is a great tie down for your closer on that call. Whether it's you doing both calls, which you can do as a business owner, Jesse and I both done the triage ourselves and the close, or you have a guy that does the triage and another rep for the close. Then at the end of that call or early on in the call when money comes up and, hey, I don't think I can move forward today. Well, I thought you told Jesse 2 days ago on the triage call that if everything made sense, you would be able to move forward today. And didn't you just tell me 5 minutes ago, Jesse, you're a 10 out of 10 and needing this program to move forward? Yeah, I did, right. Okay, so what's really stopping us? What's the real problem here? Let's have an open, honest discussion. And you can kind of put it back on them and hold them accountable. You need to ask the right questions in a sales process. So when they do try to give you a brush off or an out, you can actually hold them accountable and challenge them. I'm not saying push them in a hard manner. I'm just saying, were you really serious about this, right? I'll ask you that because if you're not, this probably isn't the right offer of business for you anyway. There is some dedication, time, whatever's included, right? So that's very important. So, Jesse, anything to add to that part?
Yeah, again, this is just leaning into objections, guys. Like the reason why we ask for that soft yes is to eliminate the objection right then and there, if possible, or at least understand what the issue will be on that next call to give to either yourself or the closer. So when someone comes back, I'm like, yeah, and I mean, yeah, like you said, it'd be good, but I'm just not sure if I can afford it, right? Okay, totally get it, right? That being said, should you feel this is a fit and we can make it make sense for you financially, at that time you would be willing to invest to further your business. Is that correct? Yeah, if you can make it make sense for me financially, I'm in. Okay, cool. So there's certain ways where we want to ask those questions to really understand what the issue is, because the more or the less we can be blindsided by a brush off or bullshit, right? The better opportunity you're going to have to help that person, right? Understand where they're at and what they need, and if they can't do it, why that is, and if there's a way to actually work with them to get that done. So again, we ask those questions to lean into objections. Don't make it feel like it's a bad thing. Like, I'm just not really sure I could do it on that call. It's a good thing if someone says, I'm like, hey, I totally get it, man. Making investment of any kind, it can be, scary. It could be something that, can be difficult to do, but if it made sense for you, you felt it was going to benefit your business where you can actually get X, Y, and Z, which you've not been able to do for A, B, and C from what you told me, then what would stop you from investing at that time? And now you're having a real conversation. You're breaking down the objection before you even get on a sales call. It's really powerful as to what it is. So asking that question is absolutely crucial going to that next call to understand what that, objection may be, or if you can overcome it right then and there and get them to say, yes, I'll do it. Then you can hold them accountable for what they had said on the previous call, should they then, negate on the conversation moving forward. So you can hold them down, tie them down with their own words, which again is extremely, extremely powerful and extremely important.
Well said. Well said. So then after step 3, steps 4 and 5 were not in the old process and not in probably what you guys have seen or used to in the past. And those make a big difference in terms of show-up rates, morale, and education. Throughout any sales process, there's kind of an overarching 4-letter acronym that applies to every sales process. It's called ACEs, and it's included in here as well. It's number 1, grab their attention, which in this is step 1. Number 2 is the conversation, and that's where we're pre-qualifying, which in this is step 3. Number 3 is education, which really happens in step 4 here. And number 4 in that ACEs mechanism would be S, the actual sale. So what a lot of people try to do, just so you guys know, and which happens in many people's funnels or imaginations or businesses, they try to grab attention and close a sale. And they skip over the conversation and the education. And it happens so often. Hey, you're interested in my stuff? Here's my link. It's like, what? Like, how do I even know if it's a good fit? Give me a look. Like, what problem does it solve? Like, that is horrible marketing and sales. If, yeah, I'm interested, here's the link. Unless they said, hey, I know exactly, if they're asking for the link after going through a VSL, totally different. But I'm sure you understand the context I'm talking about here. So what we do is after the triage call, if we know they're a good fit, we've got the commitment on the soft yes in terms of a financial pre-qualifier, and we're going to schedule them for step 6 to close. Ours goes a little something like this. All right, Jesse, so you're booked with Mark Tuesday or whatever, Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. You will be at a place where you can attend, be able to take notes, and really be attentive. Yeah, Ray, I will. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm going to send you over a quick little video that shows you exactly how we've helped 5 to 10 other business owners like you in the last 30 days increase their Facebook profitability, ads, and lower cost per acquisition. So please go through that video prior to the call. That way you and Mark will really be able to hit the ground running. You're going to be able to ask very educated questions, and you guys can dive right into it rather than waste time. In addition to that, and now I'm going into step 5 here, guys, what I'm going to do is align you guys in a 3-way messenger thread, and I'm going to connect you. So that way, if either of you guys, Jesse, you or Mark, is running 5 minutes late, a call goes over, someone gets stuck in traffic, what have you, you guys already have an open chain of communication for one. More importantly, Jesse, I'm going to rehash everything we talked about today, put that in the little group chat. That way, Mark is already introduced, knows who you are. You guys don't have to go over that whole conversation again, because I know how certain sales processes work. You do it on one call, you say the same thing on the next call. Let's just alleviate that, get you guys introduced. So be on the lookout for that. We'll see you there Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Do you have any other questions for me right now? No, Ray, that all sounds great. Thanks. I'm looking forward to getting the video and looking forward to hearing from your advisor there, Mark, right? So I did a few things right in there, and I'm sure you guys can see some of them. But the biggest thing there is connecting your closer or your advisor to the prospect prior to the sales call. In almost all offers that I see or get into, especially before I implement my process, the closer never speaks to or talks to a prospect before they look them up 20 minutes before the call in the CRM. Like, that's what happened. I have a call with Daniel Sanchez. Cool. 15 minutes before the call, I'm going to type in the CRM. I'm going to look at the notes. I'm going to look at the previous dialogue, and that's going to be my lead into the call. They don't have an open line of communication. There hasn't been communication between the prior rep and this guy about exactly what was covered and what was talked about. And I have all kinds of screenshots of exactly how to do that transitional messaging. It's a quick little thing, but you're always just verifying the date and time, because generally in a 3-way thread and doing appointments, you might have 3 different time zones where Ray is, where Jesse is, and where Mark is, right? Or what have you. That way, everybody has eyeballs on it. If I made a mistake booking and there's 3 of us, one of us is going to catch it before the appointment, and that way there's no misscheduling, right? I'm also going to reiterate, hey, I spoke with Jesse yesterday, and I'm just doing a quick little intro. You guys are set to meet Thursday at 2 p.m. What Jesse mentioned is he's been in the space for about 6 months. They're at about 10K a month, and they're really struggling to get their Facebook ads going. They've been putting some money into it, but they're not seeing any profitability. They're paying a very high cost per acquisition, and that's really the number one problem in the business. Mark, why don't you show him what we do and see if we can't fix this problem for him and grow his business here in 2024 and beyond. Boom, done. But that's a simple little thing that everybody as business owners focus on the customer and the client journey, and that's great, and so do I. I'm not knocking that. But I'm saying if in your sales process, you can have a prospect journey that goes above and beyond what they expect, they start to think, damn, what would it be like to work with these guys once I actually paid them? If they're going out of their way to treat me like this and do all this before I've even pulled out my credit card, it's just going to build up, your whole credibility, likability, and everything that a buyer is looking for. So hopefully that's all making sense. Jesse, I just kind of closed out the process. I'm going to go through some quick highlights, but anything to add on those last 2 or 3 steps?
Yeah, I was just going to say, at the end of the day, that's also going to make your show up rate skyrocket, because one, you're in constant communication with them. They know where to get a hold of you, what the expectation is, and if they need to reschedule, not a big deal. They can do that very efficiently, right, direct to you or to the closer, etc. So as we've seen when we implement this, and again, it's done properly with the right funnel in place, we've had show rates on back-end sales calls after being triaged be as high as 75 to 80% as far as monthly averages go. So again, that's a lot higher than most companies will see like 40 to 50% show rate. But when you're doing things like that, going above and beyond, people recognize it, people appreciate it, and it's just a lot easier and more efficient for you and for them if they need to reschedule, or even give them a little additional information in between to continue to nurture it before the call. It just allows you the opportunity to really give, like Ray said, the prospect journey into the best one possible.
And my homework is going to do a couple of those things. Like Jesse said, it's going to increase show up because we've delivered something of value and we've either educated or taken them closer to making a buying decision with that homework video or link or PDF or whatever we're sending them. I usually recommend a video. What also I utilize my homework video for, it's also going to do a little bit of the pre-selling for the advisor. I'm going to run through maybe a program overview of my deliverables or my package of what they're going to hear about on that call. That way, the guy will already have a basic understanding and the advisor can really dive into the intricacies of what aspects of the program are really going to move the needle for this particular business owner. So yeah, but Jesse made some great points. So just a quick take back on why this is helpful, right? We have all these micro commitments, and quite a few of them happen before we ever do a call, right? And I kind of ran through all these. You can read it really quickly on the screen, but we went through all these step by step. What I want to show you is now when I'm getting constant rejections or I think about it as feedback from the reps, I know I probably didn't set a good new frame. And that's where the big gap is. I can tell that because if they need to think about it, we haven't delivered certainty that this is the right solution. So I always say when you assign a new frame, whether I'm doing an ad, when you get that feedback, is there a strong acceptance? Oh, right, what you said totally makes sense. Great, that means they bought in. Is there a middle acceptance, meaning that kind of makes sense, but I'm not sure if it would work for me, right? Or is there a low acceptance to the new frame, meaning, Ray, what you said makes no effing sense, and then you lost them, right? So like I can figure out really quickly by the feedback and what I'm hearing from the prospects what I need to tweak. I might be getting constant no-shows. That means my homework assignment either isn't delivering any value or isn't giving them any more incentive or intrigue to want to show up to the call. I need to go back and reassess that, right? If I'm just getting all pass, that's a very vague one. So it could come back to one of two things through my research and through hundreds of sales calls, but I can still tweak it back to one or two things rather than just guessing which of the three in my old sales process is causing this metric to fail or this objection to come up. No response. That means my engagement in the beginning never bit them in if they're not responding to anything else after. And I probably am off with my targeting. If I'm getting people to engage, but then they ghost me and don't respond, I'm probably not targeting my engagement right. And that's what I got to go back and tweak. So every one of these objections or metrics, I now see building a sales team. I'm like, okay, we need to go back and put this in or tweak this really quickly. And as Jesse alluded to there, people won't talk about it, but I'll tell you from running multiple companies, from managing multiple sales teams, average high-ticket digital phone call service type of businesses do average about a 40 to 60% show rate when you get to this end close call. In the businesses Jesse had mentioned, some of the ones that we have really dialed in and optimized, one in particular, we had a 77% show rate for a calendar year with something like 5,700 leads coming in that year. So big difference from 40 to 60. If you can get your show rate up 10% in your business, it's going to make a difference in your profitability and bottom line. Never mind 20, 30, 40%. So those are all game changers. So yeah, one big sale, 6 small components. That's our kind of micro commitment process. Hopefully everybody learned something there or got something of value or saw why, kind of the psychological reasons or the tactical reasons that this stuff works or it not being in there leaves a lot of gaps and when you have gaps in this micro commitment process, all that does is make it harder for the closer to close the deal. The more we can educate and converse with and pre-qualify and get them into what we call the buying pocket or making a buying decision, and they hop on that call just like, damn, Mark, I'm super excited to hear about your program and what you have going and if this can fix my problem. When you get a prospect to show up to the call like that, as opposed to, yeah, I clicked on your ad, you booked me in, and here I am. What do you guys do? I mean, it's night and day, right? And that all comes back to the process and how much we're engaging with them. So that's what we will cover for there. Now, from there, we would go into what I really want to go over next, and this is probably the most impactful thing that we have, and I have a copy of our framework cheat sheet. So if you guys want this, and I'll explain what it is, type framework cheat sheet in the chat. But this is our overarching sales lab structure that we have designed internally ourselves based off of all the feedback from Jesse and I closing over 31 million in deals and really the structure Jesse and I built out to close those deals. And now that we've replicated and implemented in every business. So we're going to go through it all in pretty much depth, but I want you to pay attention really lot to all of the highlighted bold print because those are the different phases of a sales call. You're going to see about 8 or 9 different phases throughout the thing, and then you'll understand what each one is, right? And we like to start off, there's really 2 ways you're told as a rep. So if you're on this call and you've never been into sales, you might be hearing this for the first time. But if you've been through any sales training, you've done sales, you're going to probably know both of these ways, or maybe you're only shown the first way. But they tell a lot of sales reps to pre-frame the call and pre-frame the prospect. Now, that depends significantly on market sophistication, whether you do this or not. And again, it's the thing a lot of people overlook with their marketing, their sales process. How sophisticated of a prospect or a client am I meeting with, is on the call, who are we targeting, how high of a level is our offer, all that comes into play. I would say with a really low level education and sophistication level, somebody brand new to Facebook ad, digital marketing, you might want to frame the call. They might appreciate that. But once you get into mid to upper tier sophistication levels, don't even frame the call because all you're doing is framing yourself as a salesman. people that have been on sales calls, if you're in an offer where they're like, yeah, I've talked to 2 or 3 other companies, that's a higher sophistication. They're out there shopping offers. Now, if you pre-frame the call the same way every other rep they had a call with this week, how are you going to stand out? Or you could just start the call by saying this. Hey, Daniel, curious what inspired you to book a call and hop on my calendar and speak with us today? And just sit back and shut up, right? Like, and what we'll find very often is, well, Ray, I clicked on your ad and I saw your new data as a service offer, and I was really intrigued about how I could bolt that onto my agency, right? You're going to find out what hooked you about your marketing. And if this call is coming from a triage process and they've already spoken for a rep, I wouldn't use that line, right? Because I'm like, what inspired you to hop on the call? Well, your triage rep booked me 2 days ago, right? But I would just do this. Okay, Daniel, so I know you spoke with Jesse, our the rep, on Wednesday. Here we are on Friday. And I'm just curious. He filled me in a little. I know we talked a little in the messenger chat. But Daniel, specifically, what are you hoping to achieve or get on today's call? That way I can really streamline the call toward your needs and maybe not talk about things that aren't applicable to you. And then sit back and shut up, right? Those are 2 great ways to start a call without having to pre-frame and say, hey, this is what to expect. Again, in certain offers or in certain markets, that might be good. And if I'm doing that, this is a great little script for that, right? So basically, the first part of the call is for me to get a better understanding of who you are, where you're at, what's happening in your business. And maybe toward the end of the call, if you feel like we could be a fit or we could potentially solve the problem you're looking for, I'd be happy to discuss next steps and show you what that looks like. Would that be cool? So that's great. And if it fits your offer, that vibes really well. That's great. And if you have a higher sophistication level or things like that, this might be a good fit. So yes, next we're going to dive into the situation phase. So once we've done the introduction, and this is the one that I customize specific to each script, and I'll click on 1 or 2. I've just wrote 1 or 2 recently for different offers and kind of show you that. But this is going to be different for every single offer, whether it's called situation, intel gathering, discovery. I've seen it called a few different things. It's all one in the same phase. And the goal of this is to simply get a broad understanding of the business situation. And really the purpose is to open them up so they're willing to answer deeper questions, right? So we usually like to start the situation phase with just one open-ended question, 2, 3, 4 parted, that's going to get them talking about their business. And then under that, and I'll show you a different example, in most offers I build out, there's somewhere between 5 to 8 pieces of data or questions I'm going to ask to do the discovery phase and figure out if this is my ideal prospect. And I'll customize that for each specific offer. But a lot of times what I always tell reps too is in those 5 pieces of data I might put in there, those 5 questions, you might get 3 or 4 of them when you ask this first question because you ask such an open end, they might just keep going. Oh, Jesse, continue for 1 second while I mute and let my dog out of here. My bad, guys. My apologies for your delay there. But yeah, so a good open-ended question and something like this. Hey, just so I have a better understanding, Daniel, can you give me a little overview of your business, what's happening currently, and where you'd like it to be in the next 60, 90 days? Right? And again, just kind of sit back and be quiet and let him kind of recap that. Or again, if this is a second call, you may be doing this with a recap. Hey, in the little messenger thread between you, me, and the specialist, the other rep, he mentioned you're currently at about 10K a month. You're looking to get to 25K months. And right now, the real problem is trying to get your Facebook ads to convert. Is that a good summation of your conversation? Is there anything to add to that? Well, yeah, what he said is accurate, but also I got this, and this going on, right? And they're going to elaborate a little more. And then from there, I'm going to, go into, again, 5 or 6 different pieces of data. Those are all custom to each particular offer. Let's say we were doing lead generation for the home service business, right? That's another very vague one that we see a lot of people either doing, people on this call have done or heard about. So if I'm like working and serving the roofing industry per se, right? After I kind of get a good understanding of his business, what's going on, where he's at, things like that, I might be like, okay, cool. So based on everything you're doing right now, it sounds like you're looking to grow here going into 2024, and more leads and clients is a big part of that, right? That being said, can you tell me what your average deal value is? Yeah, man, we charge about, on average, we do a lot more residential, and on average, those are about 15K, I would say. Some higher, some lower, but that's probably our average job. Great, cool. And how many jobs are we currently getting a month? Okay, we're currently getting about 10 jobs per month. Where would you like to be, and what can you really handle? How many jobs can you handle per month? Well, Ray, at least double, if not more. Cool. So ideally, we want to go from 10 to 20, right? Excellent. And what would you say is the biggest roadblock in getting from 10 to 20? And I mean, you told me you got to about 10 clients a month, pretty much doing your organic, your networking, but you're not seeing any more growth. So you started to invest a little and we're starting to get going with paid ads. Is that the only roadblock or is there anything else stopping you from getting those next clients? Well, Ray, to be honest, I wasn't really looking to go into growth mode till recently. And now I started looking for active solutions, and Facebook ads was the first thing that really got recommended and made a lot of sense to me. So I wouldn't say I'm not sure what's missing, but this is the first thing I'm really trying that made a lot of sense for me on how to go from 10 to 20 clients at a profitable clip. Okay, great. That all makes tons of sense. And let me ask you one more thing before I kind of dive into some more solutions or some recommendations. But if I were to give you 10 exclusive pre-qualified appointments booked into your sales team's calendar, let's just say they're within the zip code you fit, they're looking for a repair or replacement yesterday, not 6 months from now, and they have the budget for it. And you're the only one that gets the lead. It's not like the stuff you're buying on Angie's List and Home Advisor where they're all shared and sent to 50 other roofers and you got to be the first one there or the lowest price, right? If I get you the 10 of those leads onto your sales team's calendar or booked in for a demo or an estimate, how many do you close, Mr. Roofer? Oh, we close. If you get me exclusive leads that are pre-vetted and asking for an estimate, my team's going to close at about 50%. Okay, excellent. So it'd be safe to say if you could close at 50%, you're looking to get an extra 10 clients per month. At this point, if I could drive you 20 good qualified booked calls, you close 50%, you'd probably see about 10 clients per month coming in addition to what you're doing. Yeah, right. I totally think we could achieve that. Okay, great. So now all I have to do through the rest of the call and when I get to the pitch is make it make sense on how I can drive him 20 qualified appointments. He's already bought into his system being built in to do the rest. It would make sense profitably. It would help him hit his revenue goals. I know all of that just after asking him about 5 questions right there. And those are kind of the things that are really important. I need to know what he's doing, how many clients he has, how many he's looking for. And I always like to ask any business owner because they always say, I need more clients. But always put it back on them. Can you actually handle them and how many? Because I don't want to overload you where you don't have enough crew. And in the roofing space, it's a really great question to ask because they're always going to say back, well, Ray, if you get me more jobs where I don't have enough guys, I'll find the damn guys. Let's just get them, right? And I'm like, cool, right? And that's very true. But you also have to have that conversation and go through the realization. So again, introduction, situation phase, we customize that specific to the offer and what are the 5 or 6 questions and things I need to know to understand if they're a good fit. Once they're a good fit, we're going to dive into the problem a little more. Now, the one thing I don't want people to take wrong out of here is none of this is redundant, right? If they've already said it, I'm not going to say it again. But it's in here because there are times you can ask them 10 questions, 5 questions about their business. Doesn't mean you dove deep into the problem. Or doesn't mean you even heard the problem at all. Never mind dove deep. So if I've already heard the main problem in there, I'm going to skip over this one and might go to the next. Hey, you said the main problem was that you just now started looking into this, so you're not really sure what the problem is, right? This is the first thing that made sense to you. So what I want to know is why did this make sense and why this decision, right? I want to get to what we find when we get the problem from prospects. It's a symptom or a surface level problem. So by asking what's causing it or how long has it been a problem, just a couple questions deeper, oftentimes it'll get us from that surface level to the root problem or the real problem. And then we can really diagnose and advise or give, good consultative advice in terms of solutions and, solutions to the problem. And really we're selling outcomes as well. So we can tell how we're going to get them to that desired outcome, right? But don't stop at surface level problems is my point here. Ask a question or two deeper, or two, get a little deeper if you've only scratched the surface. If they said my problem is Facebook ads and you just stop there and said, cool, your problem is Facebook ads. What with Facebook ads? Is it cost per acquisition? Is it profitability? Is it launching campaigns? How long have you been trying? Like there's all kinds of variables. You can't just stop at the first one. So I want people to understand that. Jesse, anything to add on before I go a little deeper? I covered situation and problem already.
No, pretty good, man. You're spot on with it. So let's keep rolling.
Excellent. Then I like to go one question deeper into the impact of problem. This is another one when you get into impacts, like Jesse mentioned earlier. It goes into kind of the acumen and skill level of a rep. The more confident you are or the more polished a rep you are, the easier it is for you to ask these kind of questions and you see the real value. Some people think this can deter a call or be a bad question. And that's more, generally speaking, lack of confidence, experience, or just limited mindset from a rep. And I get it. And I always say if something doesn't vibe that you see in a script or framework, don't implement it into yours. It has to jive. This is an outline in a framework, all malleable to your lingo, your offer. Maybe you're a little more professional. Maybe you're a little laid back, right? I'm going to talk to lawyers different than I'm going to talk to roofers. It's a totally different niche. All kinds of things like that come into play, right? But I always like to ask, cool. So your problem's been Facebook ads. It's been getting from those 10 to 20 clients. It's been, I got to 10 organically or through referrals, and I'm not sure how to grow to the next level. So let me ask you, Daniel, what impact is that actually having on you professionally or maybe personally? Because you talked a little about the professional. Well, Ray, personally, it's not allowing me to hit my income goals. It's not allowing me to take my wife on the trip she wants. And she's been harping on to put my kid in private school, and I can't quite afford it yet. Cool. So now I have the impact behind the monetary. It's good to help people make money. It's even better when we can tie it to a personal, emotional goal, outcome, tangible thing, right? So then later when we get to the end, and I'll get to it when we get there. I don't even want to skip ahead anymore. So yeah, then finding the solution. This is a big one I want to point out. And there's no right or wrong. These both work with almost anything in sales. There's no right or wrong. A certain tactic or sales technique or psychology or thought, it'll work in any industry with the right person or the right lingo. Everything it can and will work anywhere. Doesn't mean it's the most effective way or the most ethical or the most integral, right? But what most reps do, and this is what I did when I first started selling, so I'm just as guilty as anybody else. But once I've assessed the situation and done the discovery, and cool, this guy pre-qualifies, he suffers from the problem, and I can help him get that outcome. I dove into the problem a little deeper, and I know we can help him with that problem, right? A lot of them at that point will go, hey, Daniel, based off everything we talked about, where you're at, where you're trying to get to, what you've tried, what you liked, what you didn't like, and then when we really dove into the problem, the impact it's having on you, well, I believe our solution is a great fit for you. Is it cool if I roll into exactly what we do, right? And they do it there. And that probably doesn't sound bad to you guys. And again, that's how I first learned and did it. But what I found is this question is the one that helps me most customize the pitch when I get to that part of the script. And we'll talk about that momentarily. But I would rather than say, hey, Daniel, this is the solution for you. Hey, I'm going to run into it. Be like, hey, with everything we've just talked about, Daniel, what you've tried, what you haven't tried, the problems you're going through, the impact that's having on you. Let me ask you, what does an ideal solution look like to you? And two things are going to happen here. One, they're going to give you a very detailed explanation that are going to tell you exactly what they think they need, which is great. Number two, where people think it backfires and it doesn't, this is still a benefit for you, is, well, Ray, I don't really know what the heck the ideal solution is, which is why I'm on the call with you, the expert. Totally, Daniel, man. I get where you're coming from. Maybe let me rephrase. Close your eyes. Envision 90 days down the road. Your Facebook ads are running smooth. What's happening in your business? What's your cost per acquisition? How many leads are we getting? Where's our revenue? Just show me what would be if everything was running perfect and we fix this problem. And have them envision the future and talk about that. Right? Either one of those is going to get you what you need to know in terms of how you can present the deliverables or the pillars or whatever you call them within your offer to really highlight that prospect. Because as I always tell people, and we're going to get to here momentarily, you should customize the pitch. I could be selling the same exact offer and the same deliverables on 8 sales calls a day to 8 different people. And what I've heard, a majority of sales reps as well as business owners, when they build out these scripts, the pitch is the same on all 8 fucking calls. Everything else is different, but the pitch is somehow the same. And that obviously shouldn't make sense. If I have a different prospect with a different problem, the pitch should probably be a little different. So when I do that, I have 8 pitches, 8 calls, 8 same offer, 8 different pitches to 8 different customers, and I'll explain why. But really, this question is where I take down a couple little notes on their answer. I'm like, sweet, when I customize the pitch, I know exactly what to focus on with my deliverables and what to really, really highlight. Doesn't mean I'm going to gloss over or omit other things, but I'm going to focus on what's going to solve problem 1 and 2, and not as much what might solve problem 3, 4, 5, and 6. What's really pressing, and that's what I'm going to focus on in my offer. So it's really good to ask that. And then, if you haven't already touched on it, once they start to talk about that, it's like, hey, what have you really been doing to fix this problem? I know you said you just got active and you booked a call with me, but what else have you tried? Did you try any do-it-yourself courses? Did you get on the other calls with other companies? What did you like about them? What didn't you like, right? Dive into it a little bit deeper and get them talking there. And then impact of the solution is another good one. So if you were able to get this fixed, Daniel, and never have to worry about your ads being profitable and having a clear, predictable way to scale to 20 clients per month, how would things be different in your life and your business? And let them envision the success of your program, right? And then you would tie them down really quickly. Cool. So you feel like you had a consistent, predictable system for lead generation and quality booked appointments to your call. You could achieve those 20 clients a month and that 200K revenue goal, whatever it was, right? Yeah, Daniel, I totally believe if I had that in my business, I could fix that. Cool. Let me ask you something on the other side of things here, Daniel, really quickly. On the flip side, what happens if we don't get this solved and we don't get to those 20 clients and we can never grow the business? Where does your business be in the next 3 weeks, 3 months, hell, 3 years? Well, Ray, If I don't get it fixed in 3 weeks, it's going to be a little frustrating, but I'm still going to be where I am at now. 3 months. If I don't have this problem fixed in 3 months, I'm going to start to feel like I failed because I am actively looking for a problem and it shouldn't take me 90 days to solve it. If I don't fix this in 3 years, I don't know if I'll stay in business. I can't guarantee I'm going to keep getting referrals and organic traffic, and I won't have a predictable way because I don't know one's coming in tomorrow like I can with how you mentioned with the predictable ad system. So that's kind of what I'm thinking there, right? So I basically just got him to say in really quick form, hey, Ray, if I had this, I could achieve my goal. If I didn't have this, there's a possibility I'm out of business in a couple of years, right? And that's where I can get into customizing the pitch. And before I do that, Jesse, do you have anything to add on to these? Because you're kind of a better tie down and consequence of doing nothing person, but I might have said it how you would have.
No, you're good. I was going to say one thing I wanted to kind of go back to is what Ray was saying. It's like, 8 different calls is going to lead to 8 different conversations and 8 different pitches is the way it should be. And so that's the exact process of what we do, is just having a conversation and driving it to where it needs to go for each individual. That's where a lot of people fail in this space, is they have a script, which I never use, Ray never uses. I hate scripts. They're just redundant, ridiculous, robotic, and it doesn't allow you to be you and really listen actively to what the person's saying. You're just reacting to the next question and what you should be asking in A, B, C, and D. So by doing what Ray's talking about here, which we're getting to with our frame, again, frame, not a script, it allows you to, again, actively listen to what people are saying, drive the conversation where it needs to go. So instead of following, the script A, B, C, D, E, F, G, it could be A to B to D to F to G to C, back up to A, or whatever the hell it is, right? So that allows you to keep it very organic and really, again, not sound robotic or like you're just trying to probe and ask questions based upon, your agenda. It allows you to listen to their agenda and then customize it towards where it needs to go. So again, what Ray is saying, that's very, very important, should never be the same. The outcome should be the same as to what you're doing and what you're positioning, but the conversation should always be different and customized to the person that you're talking to on the other side.
Totally. And I'll add a little to that when we get to the end of this, but I just want to keep it flowing while we're in flow. So once I go through the consequence of inaction, and they kind of told me that's kind of ripping their dream away, right? Right? If I had this, I could achieve this. If I didn't, this might happen. So you're kind of showing them both sides of the coin. And then I'm like, hey man, I totally hear you, Daniel, and I wouldn't want to see that happen for you. Sounds like you guys do have a great service. Sounds like you really care for your guys and your workers. I'd love to see you grow this thing too, right? So based off what we just discussed, where you're trying to get to, would it be cool if I kind of walk you through the exact process we've used for dozens and dozens of other roofing companies, like John's case that you saw in the video I sent you, for example, that helped them achieve, a very consistent, predictable, dialed in, exclusive lead generation system? Cool if I walk you through that process real quick, right? And very rarely are you say, no, Ray, don't show me how you've helped dozens of other roofers achieve what I'm trying to achieve, right? It's also allowing you to ask permission, and it's doing so in a very non-invasive conversational way. That's the other aspect of the pitch. When I doing call audits and I get to the pitch, all of a sudden there's no more back and forth, and it's just one guy talking for 8 straight minutes, talking about deliverables and stuff within a program. Where number one, you don't talk about the deliverables or the features. We really highlight the benefits and what's in it for them. Deliverables are just features. I always give this example, or this is a good one, right? When I want a battery, I don't really care about the features or on the back of it, the copper top, the longer lasting. I care about the benefit of getting it in my child's toy and getting them to shut the heck up and stop crying, right? Hey, Ray, I want this in my toy. Like, I don't care about the deliverables. I care about the outcome of getting a battery in my kid's toy and getting them quiet, right? So that's what I'm selling is the outcome and the end result, and not necessarily the copper top or the battery life or the longer lasting or the Energizer Bunny or whatever the hell you want to call it, right? So, and then examples of like in here, and I just went through it, right? But like you're gonna highlight to help them achieve a desired goal, outcome, or solve a specific problem. Quite a few examples there could be launch and grow a consistent, predictable business, lower cost per acquisition, add costs, increase quality of clients, increase quantity of leads, recover bounce site visitors, on and on and on. There's so many different things. And then once we've gone through the pitch, and again, I do that custom to each offer because generally speaking, in any offer, when you pitch, I like to mix in what's called visual sales, screen sharing and walking them through people and having them visually learn and understand it, as well as audibly listen to what you're saying. It just paints a picture, and I know it converts a lot better. And I've seen through my own experience how higher of a percentage I close when I have some great visual aids built into my sales presentation. Not mandatory, but I've just found it works a lot better if you have them and can use them. And if you're wondering what those are, say the two things you get the best feedback from your clients or students. What is that? Let's just say in this call, it's micro commitments and it's our AAA objection overcoming framework, right? So I'm going to kind of take those two highlights of everything and encapsulate that into exactly what's going to really help them get to the next level. So, but what we really want to do when I'm customizing the pitch and highlighting all that stuff, once we've got to the end of it, and again, should still be a two-way conversation checking in with them. So let's just say our product or our program has 4 key deliverables. For ads, we do ad management setup, we do your targeting, we do your budgeting and media buying, and we also set up your follow-up automation email. So those are the 4 things. Within each 4, there's a couple subcomponents that go into that, right? But I'm going to know based on this guy, all right, in this case, it's really about the consistent, predictable. So it's about the media buying aspect, the budgeting, and then it's about the follow-up and getting them into the calendar. So I'm going to go over everything in the program, but I'm really going to highlight pillars 3 and 4 for this particular prospect, because based off he told me of what he's looking for an ideal solution or outcome, those are what's going to help him deliver that. So that's really what I'm going to focus on. But then we always go into a temp check after we've done the pitch. So the pitch is customized, it's interactional, and when we get to the end, hey, Daniel, finances aside, on a scale of, say, finances aside, because obviously that has to line up, but on a scale of, say, 1 to 10, 1, Ray, you're ugly, let's hang up now. 10, I need this service in my business like yesterday to hit my revenue goals. Where do you stand on that end of the spectrum, Daniel? Right? And this is where we're really gauging certainty. That's what we're selling in any product or offer. If we don't have certainty, meaning the prospect bought into the efficacy of the product, program, offer, it's going to be very hard to close the deal, and you're going to be very lengthy with your objection overcoming phase of the call. So it's really understanding certainty and efficacy, for lack of a better phrase here. But we're always selling certainty in any offer. I think a lot of reps overlook that and say, I'm selling Facebook ads, I'm selling this. No, you're selling certainty in a solution to a problem. And if you haven't done that in the call, you're probably not going to sell the service you think you're selling, right? But generally speaking, if I get under an 8 there, I kind of want to ask them, cool, man, so you're a 7 out of 10. Okay, so you see the value of what I did, and you actually understood what I went through. But let me ask you, Daniel, 7 out of 10, is there anything that's not included in my program or anything I didn't talk about that you feel like you need to be successful that might make you closer to an 8, 9, or a 10? Well, Ray, you mentioned the media buying and the accountability and the messaging, but I still need help with ad manager setup and launch, right? So a lot of times there could be something that's already in your program that you just highlighted, but you really focused on the other deliverables. And it's like, I talked about pillar 1 there, Daniel. You didn't really understand it, or I didn't spend a lot of time on it. That's my fault. But we actually do your full account manager setup from scratch, starting new campaigns, new ad sets, new ad accounts, ad account shutdowns. We help revive and fight those for you. So actually our team does handle all that. I'm sorry I didn't cover that for you. Knowing that now, let me re-ask you, where are you on that scale of 1 to 10 now? Oh, shoot, you guys do all that stuff too in addition to everything else? Yeah, I'm closer to a 9, Ray, right? So I can kind of take that back, and a lot of times they're going to say, I feel like I need this or that, right? And it's like, oh, shoot, we actually do that. I'm sorry I didn't elaborate enough. Let me explain it real quick, and now where are you at on that scale, right? And that happens very often. Or you can also, if you get a low response, that normally means you didn't do a great job in discovery and customizing the pitch, but let's say you get a low response. Hey, Ray, I'm a 5 out of 10. Okay, Daniel, you're a 5. Let me ask you, why you're not a 2 or a 3? So I'm doing that to get them to start talking about what they actually liked about the program. Well, I'm not a 2 or a 3 because I actually do believe this will work. Yada, yada, yada. Cool. So you do believe this will work. Well, then why are we only a 5? What's missing to get you? And then I can start to focus on what's missing. But at first, if you gave me that low of a number, I want to find out what he actually liked about the program or why he gave me that number, right? So temp check, super, super relevant. All this is done, as you've seen. I haven't got to the point where we even talked about price yet. And you might be wondering or asking yourself, or you might get this on calls. Hey, Ray, earlier in the call, what's the price? Because if the price doesn't line up, I don't even know if I want to be on this call. It's like, hey, man, I'd be happy to share the price with you, but does it really matter if I say $1 or 10,000 right now if we don't know if this can help you, right? So that's one way you can handle it. Or, yeah, Daniel, I'd love to share you the price, but to be honest, I have products starting at 97. I have clients that pay me up to 50,000 and damn near everything in between. So I'm not sure what's the best to prescribe to you. Do you want me to tell you 97? Do you want me to tell you 50 grand? All right, Ray, let's talk about what you really do, right? And then that's going to overcome that as well. So all kinds of ways you guys can overcome that. Jesse, anything to add to the temp check part?
Yeah, I mean, the temp check is there again. You're just gauging for any objection that can come in, right? So someone says, "Oh yeah, no, I'm 8 out of 10. Awesome, man, 8. That's pretty damn good." What is it that you like that's making you an 8? Well, this, and this. Okay. And so what's missing to make it a 10? Well, this, and this. So now I have leverage to understand this is what I like about what you've told me, and this is what I would need to obviously get to that point of being a 10. Okay. So essentially, it's just a way to understand truthfully what they like. They're giving me a number and saying, awesome, 8 out of 10 is pretty good. You know, what is it you like that's making this an 8 out of 10? That's pretty damn good. Well, this, and this. And just whatever comes immediately to them and what they say is genuinely without them having to think or bullshit you of what they like. Okay, cool. And then, you know, obviously we're not quite to a 10. What's missing? You know, what would get you to a 10? Tell me more about that. You know, so it just gives you the opportunity to understand what you've already tied down, what they like, and then where you need to come back and isolate to retie down to get them to a 10. So that's essentially why it's there for you.
100%. And then when you do get them to a 10, and this is kind of again a boss level move for a sales rep when you get more confident and established. But like, hey, awesome that you're a 10. Do you mind me asking, you know, why you think this will work for you, Daniel, and why you gave me a 10, right? And all this is doing is really right before you get into the price present, it's making them resell themselves. Well, Ray, I'm a 10 because I totally know this can get me to my 20 clients. I totally think this can help me earn enough money where I can take my wife on those vacations and put my kid in that private school. So yeah, I'm all about it, right? So if they just say that right before I go to the price, that's the best buying pocket I can get them into. Okay. And then, you know, a very simple way to go on the price, and this can always be tweaked. Again, to speak on what Jesse said, I hadn't talked about it much. I hate scripts too. If I wanted a scripted sales rep, I could write a great script, hire a monkey, and teach them how to read. Like I need somebody that's going to be personable, you know, critical thinker that's going to have a customized conversation. They have a framework to go by, but I always want them tweaking it. I don't want my reps to use the exact same word track because that's not their verbiage. It won't be authentic. Take what I say and tweak it to you, to what's, you know, genuine and authentic and what vibes with you. So that's the same with everything in this. You know, what we have is a great frame, tweak it to fit your offer, your sophistication level, your lingo, your prospect, right? But once I get to there and they've just told me and resold themselves on my program, it's like, okay, Daniel, man, perfect. So you're 10 out of 10. You know this can help you get to your goals. There's nothing I would love to do more than get you rocking and rolling today. So the best part is in order to, you know, move forward, get that consistent, predictable, exclusive lead gen system built and help you hit those goals so you never have to worry about figuring out this Facebook ad thing again. It's just 5K to get started today, and we accept credit or debit. What works best for you? And that's what's called an assumptive close. You guys may think that's weird, but you'd be surprised. It's a small percentage, no doubt, but I'm still surprised after one quick conversation. I get to this and I'm like, what works best for you? Well, Ray, my MasterCard, 47, and they just pull it out and start reading it. So that's where you're going to really gauge where you're at. They're going to pull out their credit card, or now you're going to get to the objections, right? And we talked about this briefly early. You know, acknowledge, agree, and isolate. Hey, Ray, I don't make any decisions without my spouse. Okay, man, I totally get where you're coming from. And I probably wouldn't do the same either. But let me just ask you this, Daniel. Do you not make any financial decisions without your spouse? Is that like a steadfast rule? Or is it more out of consideration because you don't want to have her come home, you tell her, and then you're sleeping on the couch? Like, which one of the two, right? So now I'm understanding, is this a consequential objection? Or is this a logistical, I'm not going to move today without talking to her, right? So I agreed with him, acknowledged it, and then asked one question deeper to find out how steadfast this is. That's just one example, right? But multiple ways you can go with that. And then we get into a whole framework about how to chunk this down further and further if the objection keeps going. But in essence, although we get in a little more depth with it, in essence, it's really this rinse and repeat. It's always kind of acknowledging, agreeing with where they're coming from, and then asking a question to get a layer deeper, to get them to say something of substance back about your program or the question or the objection, right? The one I definitely want to have time for, Jesse, and I might be a little late to my next call. You might even be on here, Eric. I think I have a call with you booked next if you're on here. Well, I might run a little late because this is going a little over. But Jesse, I definitely want to have you and I go through the financial breakdown real quick before I do the Q&A. And then just so you guys know, this is something, you know, in our, I believe this might be in our cheat sheet, but it's definitely in for our paying clients. We also have every objection you could think of with a transcript of how Jesse and I handle them on calls. So prospect says this, rep says this, prospect says this, rep says this. So that showed partner spouse. This one shows the exact transcript for not the right timing. I've been burned by, or I'm in another program currently. I need to think about it, which really just means I don't trust you guys, right? How do I handle that one? So we also have all this. I believe it's on the framework cheat sheet, but it might just be on our paying clients one. I'll have to double check, guys. Jesse, real quick before we go to Q&A, can you dive into what you want to say about financial breakdowns, and do you want to do a quick role play with me, or do you just want to talk about it yourself?
No, we'll just frame it real quick here, and then if they want further, they can dive deeper and ask about it. But basically, guys, like Ray said, all the objections are here. This isn't for you to follow like word by word. As far as that goes, it just gives you the frame as to how those conversations go. Like this is literally scripted from physical, actual live calls pulled, done word for word verbatim from back and forth. So you can just get an idea and a feel of the flow of what those are. But again, as we said, everything we try to do is push towards a financial breakdown, meaning the only objection that I want to get at the end of the conversation is I can't afford it. And so the best way to kind of isolate and tie that down would be with the AAA frame, right? Like, hey, man, Ray, totally get it. I know that is a lot of money. Totally understand. Now, that being said, money aside, right? Say the money was an issue. We're at 10 out of 10 and we moving forward and investing today, provided that without the money in place. Is that correct? Yeah, absolutely. So if, it was there and, I could do it, I'd be moving forward. Okay. So that being said, provided we can make it make sense here today, you'd be willing to invest to further your business. Is that correct? Yeah. If we can make it make sense, I'm totally there. And we can kind of break it down. That would be a little bit different as to what I'm about to do, but then we can kind of see where they're at in a sense. Break it down, offer a 2-pay, a 3-pay. And again, if you want that further, you can reach out and give that to you. But after this point, if we can kind of take a look and see like, hey, I just simply can't afford it. The money's not there. Like I absolutely want to do this. Just unfortunately, man, like I don't have the money now, and I probably won't have it for a few weeks. I'm not even sure I'm going to have it. Okay, no worries. So, hey, Ray, would you be, open to having a honest conversation about where you are today versus where you want to be? So even if it's not today, right, I'm taking the pressure off. We can game plan how we can get you there as efficiently as possible. That way you can start to hit those goals of A, B, and C, which you've not been able to do to X, Y, and Z. Would you be open to that conversation? Yeah, man, absolutely. All right. So yeah, he answers it, comes back. Okay, cool. And then I'm just going to reiterate kind of what I already know in the beginning. Like, okay, hey, Ray, I know you said you're making about $7,500 a month right now, and you like to get it to about 15,000. So you're looking to double your income. That's where the struggle has been. Now that 7,500 coming through, is that going to a business account? You're checking. How do you kind of manage that? It goes into a business account, right? Awesome. Okay. So after all bills are paid, after that 7,500, what does that leave you at the end of the month? After all bills are paid, just free cash flow. He'd give me a number, right? Awesome. Okay. Now, aside from that, have we built up a savings at all? Put aside a savings. We have a savings in place at all right now that we've tapped into. We have use for the business. Was just sitting there for a rainy day. Yeah, I do have a savings account. Okay. Have you had to tap into that before? Why am I going to ask that? Because I want to know if you tap into that, what does that look like? Do you write a check? Do you transfer it to your checking, right? What's the process that you do to understand how you would be able to pay and what it would look like time frame wise, right? Yeah, I have a savings. It can have X amount in there. Perfect. Okay. Very, very good. Now, that being said, when you've invested into your business up until this point as well, have you ever utilized credit, right? A lot of people will utilize credit when they're building their business, OPM, other people's money, right? That way you can leverage that investment and pay it off as things come through as you build your business. Have you ever utilized credit before? Yes, I have. Okay, perfect. Okay, let's go and break that down, just kind of understand where you are specifically. Again, there's, no judgment here. We just really want to see where we are so we can game plan to get you where you want to be. Now that being said, Ray, how many credit cards do we have open and active at this time? Credit cards would be Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express. Well, I have this amount. Okay, cool. So you have 3, that's how it says. Perfect. Okay. And then those there specifically, let's just kind of cover those and see where we're at right now. So the first card that you have, do you check those statements online with your banking? Do you get paper statements? How do you check your statements? Well, I check it through my online portal. Okay, cool. So you're able to pull things up and just kind of take a look every single day as needed as to balance limits, et cetera, on their payments that need to be made. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and go through that together then. Let's just kind of break it down and see where we are, and to really understand how, 1, we can pay things down, and 2, be as efficient as possible when the time is right for you to invest. So that first card, what is it? Is it a Visa, MasterCard, blah, blah, blah? Oh, it's a Visa. Okay. Who's it through? It's through Chase. Okay. Chase Visa. Go ahead and pull it up for me. What's that look like there as far as balance that you have on that card? I have a $5,000 balance. Okay. And what did the bank trust you with? What is the limit that you have on that card? It's $7,000. Okay. So safe to say we have roughly about $2,000 of availability on that card, and we're going to pay down about $5,000 on that card. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Okay. And that card, do you have any points you use for that traveling, right? Like, my business partner and I, we've utilized points. When I got married, Ray actually flew out on the points we use for our credit cards through marketing, which is pretty sweet. You fly for free. Do you have any points or anything you use on that card, when you do invest? Yeah, no, I do. Awesome. Perfect. Great. Love it. And then I go to the next card. I say the same thing. Next card, I say the same thing. So what I'm trying to do is get an overall view of their financial portfolio as to where they are and where they want to be, and really game plan. One thing I didn't cover, which we can do in depth too, more so, is when we role play this, I also ask about goals, right? That way it doesn't feel so invasive. So, okay, hey, what do we have in checking right now? About 5,000. Okay, after all bills are paid, what's that leave you with? Well, about 2,000. Okay, as a goal, where would you like to be? So I know you said 5,000 is coming in, 2,000 is there, but as a goal, as we're growing and as we're progressing, building our business, what would you like to see in checking at all times? Well, I want to see 10 grand in there. Great goal, man. Love it. So again, there's a way to dive into this in a way where you're really understanding where they are, not making it feel like it's really invasive, like I'm just asking you questions just to see how much money you have, but building it up in a sense of, okay, this is where I am. This is where I want to be. Great goal. I love it. Okay. Savings, same thing. Okay. We have 5,000 in savings. Where would we like to be in 30 to 60 days if we can grow the business and start to put more money away in savings? I like to see it, 7,500 or 10,000. Okay, so essentially double that. Great, I love it. Very good. Right, and then I go into credit cards. I'm trying to understand where they are, how they've used that card, if they have points on it, etc. You're just basically building a game plan financially to, if there is, let's say, upon 2 or 3 credit cards, at say $5,000 or $6,000 availability, this guy already told me that provided I can make it make sense today financially, that he'd be willing to invest. So say our price point is 5 grand to work with us. We have a 2 pay, we have a 3 pay. I'm always going to do what's in the best interest of the person on the other side of the phone. I'm not going to try and go for as much as physically possible. I would come back like, hey, Ray, it looks like, okay, we have this here in savings and checking. This is our goal. Credit here, availability, blah, 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 blah. Is all that correct, Ray? He would say, yes, that's all correct as far as what we've come here today. Okay. So now that being said, as far as where we are, one thing we don't want to do is strap you for cash. You want to make sure you can get where you want to go in a timely fashion. And ultimately, you actually do have an opportunity to invest here today where we can get you A, B, and C, which you've not been able to for X, Y, and Z. We do offer a 2 and a 3 pay. However, based upon your portfolio, we're going to suggest here doing a 3 pay, which is going to be whatever, $1,800 here today. That way you still have availability on your credit cards. We don't touch any cash in place, and you can start to get the help that you need for your business, as you said, that you desperately need and you're ready to move forward on. That being said, go ahead and grab that card. Let me know when you have it handy, and I'll walk you through that process. And you literally sit down, you shut up, and I would say about 85% of the time, they get the card and there is zero objection. If there is an objection, I come back and I can isolate it down with what they had told me previously. Hey, totally get it. I know, again, investing is a little tight right now. However, there's availability. And you said if we can make it make sense today for you financially, we'd be willing to invest. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. And as far as where we're at, what isn't necessarily lining up for you here? Because again, as we'd said, you want this, you like this, you're looking for this, and you said you want to do this provided it makes sense. Ultimately, here we're not strapping you for cash, not pulling out of savings, not pulling out of checking. We have the ability to do it on a credit card where you're also building flyer miles, blah, 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 blah. So what is really holding you back from doing that here today? And I can hold him accountable for everything he said. And then he's going to feel like a complete idiot and stupid for telling me he can't do it. And then whatever it is, he comes back and I just continue to isolate it down and say, hey, I totally get it. And as far as that goes, makes sense. However, you have the opportunity to actually make an impact and change where you want to be here today, which you said you've not been able to do for 6 to 8 months. So again, go ahead and grab that card. Let me know when you have it handy, and I'll walk you through that process. And you sit back and you shut up, right? It's just that every single time. And again, I would say about 9 out of 10 times, if there is money there, if you had the right conversation, you may get an objection. Generally, you don't if you do it right. But if you do, you can still overcome it with all the ammunition you have at that point to tie them back down and obviously make the best decision for themselves to move forward, provided you feel it is the right fit for them and they did too, which they've clearly said. So that's just a breakdown, a quick synopsis on that, guys, as far as that goes. Ray and I have role played this a couple times, recorded. We have it broken down on paper as well for our paying clients that work with us, whether that's, again, weekly training, placement, more so like actual long-term training, et cetera. It doesn't really matter, but that's just a general breakdown of what we do. And again, I know I'm really, really quick there, but if you're able to do that, even at 50% of the capacity of what I just did, you're going to see your close rate go up by like 40 to 50% overnight.
Totally. And we're going to dive into Q&A. I know we're going a little long here, and even if we go a little over, oh well, my next calls can wait. I already messaged one of the guys. Not that big of a deal. But what I wanted to mention really quickly before I get into the Q&A is if anybody on the call is looking for a sales role opportunity, looking to get into sales, looking for a product to sell for themselves, or even a startup at home-based business, kind of low ticket, how do I earn revenue from home? We have all kinds of different stuff we can help with that as well. If anyone wants to know more or speak with our team, myself in particular, just on a brief 15-minute call so we can walk you through the best options, what's available, what's out there, what you're looking for, and just break that all down on an individual level, because there's no way I can do that with everybody on the call here now. Feel free to click the link there, bring it up, copy and paste it, what have you, save it, go click on it later, tomorrow, next week, whenever you feel it's a good time to book. And the last thing I'm going to do before we go in the Q&A is show you guys something cool that, generally speaking, only our private clients see. And I just want to share this with everybody because it's kind of high level. And this is what I'm talking about with like visual sales, right? If I have a tool like this, that's going to be very applicable to my program, and I know like a lot of my clients and students really dig it, this might be something I use in virtual sales. But all this really is that long document kind of that I went through of the whole framework. This is kind of each of those steps. So all of the colored boxes, I'd say the purple are really the most important, but these are all the different phases that we went through on the other script. And this is just in a bit more of a visual way, right? So you'll see introduction. As you see my notes to the side, skip the BS frame. All you're doing is framing yourself as a sales rep and go with more what attracted you to this opportunity, this solution, right? Our company, whatever that is. Then we go through the situation discovery or gathering information phase. And we're going to customize that with about 5 to 8 questions, very specific to what I need to know to pre-qualify this person and to really dig into, if our product, service, whatever solves their problem, delivers them results, yada, 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 right? Then we get into problems, impact of problems, solutions. Again, remember this number 1 here where I'm hovering the mouse. What does an ideal solution look like for you? Remember to ask the prospect before you just go diagnosing and prescribing solutions, right? Then you go into a tie down and get them to commit. Hey, if you think you had this, do you think you could reach this, right? Then we talk about the consequence of not moving forward. We kind of rip away their dream once they know they can hit it. Then we go into the program service or breakdown, right? And that's where we go through the customized pitch. Then we'll kind of, does that all make sense? Any questions on that? Then we'll temp check, right? And then we'll get down into price present. So this is just a more visual way. And again, over here, you'll see connection phase, situation or discovery phase, problem, solution, commitment, consequences, presentation, right? This is just kind of rinse and repeat. I just showed it in different ways with little different coaching points for private clients. But I know like some people like the kind of visual aspect, and although they saw it in a document, this might help them just correlate everything and connect the dots a little better. So yeah, what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm just going to go around and call on everybody in the order you're showing on my Zoom screen. If you have a comment, unmute and say something. If not, just say pass or stay quiet for 10 or 15 seconds and I'll move on to the next person. But I'll just do this because this should make it a little quicker. So Daniel, you're first on my screen, and I know you just kind of joined and became a part of the team here earlier this week. But any thoughts about today? Or Daniel Sanchez, you're the first one on my screen. Any thoughts today or anything you'd like to say about the presentation?
Extremely detailed, very structured. You cover a lot of nuances when it comes to sales that I think a lot of people miss. They either simplify it too much or they make it too complex. And you just have exactly what's needed, nothing more, nothing less. And that I think will help streamline people's progress when they're applying this in their business or however. So it's really good. That's great. Also,
Thank you for the feedback. I appreciate that. How about you, Kat? Any questions you had or any thoughts about today's presentation?
I was familiar with a lot of what you went over. However, I missed the first like 15 minutes, so I want to go back and, see it to get the whole picture. So I appreciate you having this today, though.
Great. And I'll make sure once I have the replay set, I'll send it so you can go back and rewatch the beginning of it.
Yeah, that'll be cool. Daniel's already
even better.
Be taken care of, I think, though. So, but that's cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Fahad, did you have any thoughts, or are you able to unmute and chime in with any thoughts today? We'll give people a 10-second shot clock. Cool. On to you, JP. Any thoughts or feedback on today's presentation? He may be away or not able to unmute either. How about yourself, Katrina? Unable to mute. No worries. I know it happens on certain people's settings or they have background noise. Totally get it. Katrina, any thoughts?
Sorry.
Oh, gotcha. Totally.
Fahad might have prayer. He does prayer at the top of the hour, so he might have still been at the tail end of his prayer.
Understood. Okay. Thank you for chiming in, Rebecca. Appreciate that. Katrina, you already mentioned great in the comments. Excellent. Thank you for the feedback. Erica, any thoughts or questions from yourself here? Nobody wants to talk? Speak up. Totally fine. No
If
worries.
he's in the office, he might have a few words for you.
Okay, cool. JP, you there now? It looks like you've unmuted, but there's still no audio.
Testing, 1, 2.
There you are. Now you're here.
A little distorted. This is my third call today, so sometimes my AV bugs out a little bit. First of all, thank you guys so much for the call. As always, amazing. What's really nice is that the professionalism comes through clearly. It's obvious that you guys have done this from a been there, done that perspective, and I really value that. One of the things that kind of irks me in the market, and we've talked about this previously, and we say this with love and respect, right? A lot of new folks in the market, especially post-COVID, right? And they're all doing their best to navigate within the industry. And what's nice about what you folks are doing here is you're putting on a literal masterclass, teaching people the skills that they need to pay the bills, whether they're a setter, a self-starter, a solopreneur, or a small-time business owner. So thank you for opening this space and giving everybody the opportunity to share and learn from your insights. So incredibly valuable. That's my opening statement. My comment as a follow-up, as a commentary, I got really good value out of the deliverables breakdown. One of the things that I need to kind of work on a little bit is that I do not do any sort of forcible hard close at all. And that goes back to my sales training, which is if I have to hard close somebody to get started, I'm going to have to hard close them to keep in the program. And in the most, extreme cases, I'd have to hard close them to make it to the finish line, which we all know that's not any fun. So what I like about your approach here, guys, is that you're pre-qualifying them and you're selling them on themselves, but really what you're doing is you're doing double and triple tie down commitments to themselves. They're not committing to you. They're not committing to your program. They're not committing to your advertising or marketing. They're making an internal commitment to themselves. I'm going to do this for my business. I'm going to do this for my future. I'm going to do this for my goals. And you're not making it about yourself. One of the things that I see oftentimes, and I say this respectfully, is that amateurs will always talk about themselves and the professionals will always talk about their clients. Case studies and client work, as opposed to me. And that's just a huge red flag for anybody in the market, right? So thanks again for the training. Thanks again for the insights. I look forward to the follow-up from Daniel with the scripts and some of the other frameworks that we discussed here today. And that's the end of my comments. Thank you guys again. See you soon. Take care. Peace.
Awesome. Great feedback. And you said so many things that I agree with, and you're right. We have talked about a couple of those things on other occasions. But I appreciate you saying so, and seeing that. Somebody was asking me something the other day about my sales training, my masterclass. I'm like, well, why don't you just ask somebody that attended or show up and watch for yourself? I'm like, I don't want to talk about myself and say how good it is or how bad. I think like, just either go show or watch this little video. So I'd rather other people talk for what I do. So I fully agree. And there are that certain percentage or there's certain people in the market that are all about themselves and just talking about themselves. So yeah, as I mentioned, guys, I'll get to the last 2 or 3 people on the screen here in a minute, and then Jesse will give you a little recap. But yeah, as I mentioned, in addition to like what I mentioned here on the call, the triage sheet, the cheat sheet for the framework for the sales call, we have all kinds of other like great recordings of role play with Jesse and I financial breakdown, or Jesse and I like the full frame back and forth of how it should flow when you have a qualified prospect and a vetted top-notch sales rep. So all kinds of other stuff. Again, should you want to book a call and get on a 15-minute chat, I'd say on over half of the calls I do, I just end up sending people free stuff because that's what they need right now, and they don't need a $100 program, $500 program, whatever it is to get into their thing. So I have a lot more of those available that I can make, kind of custom and assess where you're at in your situation and which one would really kind of move the needle, if you find that helpful. So let me get to the last couple of people on the screen and then a closing statement from me and Jesse here and a thank you to everybody. But Mark, any thoughts on the presentation here today and your takeaways?
Can you hear me?
Yep, audio's clear.
Yeah, good. No, great. I said no, and then I started talking. Great presentation. Having worked with you for a while now and having known you, and you just said something. See, you just said something so crucial right at the end. Book a call with me. A lot of the times I give something, I'll give you something free because that's what's needed. That's the whole point. This isn't just a short-term quick thing to come in here, grab somebody's money and run. It's to help as many people as possible. And that's what you guys are all about. That's what this is all about, is to be able to really help people. Just the information given on this call to me was amazing. And I know there's so much more. So I don't want to keep talking because I know it's been a long call and everybody needs to get going. So thanks, Ray.
Great. Thanks for the kind words and appreciate that. Rebecca, not sure if you had background noise. It sounded like it, but I'll give you a moment here if you want to unmute and say anything. And if you can't, that's totally cool too.
Yeah, JP and I have 2 kids and they kind of keep us busy.
You don't say.
I always chime in when I can.
Totally.
But I love the call today. It was really informational. I have not had the sales background that JP has. He has had so much experience with that and I have not. So, for me, it was a really valuable call and I was able to really pick up on a couple of new things that I haven't implemented before. JP has trained me a little bit, not a whole lot, but a little bit. But I do know that the hard close is a big no-go. If you have to hold the client's hand in the beginning, you're going to have to hold their hand for the whole contract. And you only have 2 hands. So are you going to type and hold someone's hand at the same time? Or are you just going to move on and get a different client that is going to self-start the way that you need them to in your business? So it really is not about the deals that you say yes to. It's about the deals that you say no to in this process as well, because you don't want to have so many clients that you have to handhold and pay attention to so much to where it's dragging everyone else down and it's making everyone else's experience with your company bad. So I just wanted to say that to them, and then that's awesome. Thank you for the call, women.
Thank you. Thank you. I like hearing from people that haven't had a lot of sales training or aren't super versed, and just happy to hear that you're picking up on it, because I try to make this very high level for people that are in sales. They should pick up something, but also I try to help people that are just getting into sales kind of understand what this process looks like. I don't expect them to grasp it all, but if they can pick it up, follow, and learn something, thank you. Great feedback. Last one on Daniel Kaplan. Anything to tie in? Any thoughts or questions on today's presentation, Daniel? And I'll take that as a no. Cool. So thank you everybody for coming. Again, thank you for the feedback and the questions there at the end. I appreciate the engagement and just hearing everybody's takeaways and what they've ingested. And the one thing I would say for anybody that is going to sell, wants to get into sales, is currently in sales, is please take something today and actually go implement it into your process. So many things that we do, we gather information and we consume information, but we don't actually apply it into our sales process, into our business. Go make a tweak in your process, in your script, in how you customize your pitch, and actually implement something so you can see some results from this. And my kind of last thing I'd like to say as an overarching note before I kick it back to Jesse before we sign off is one of the things I think that a good rep does, and what really makes an A or B player rep from an average to below average rep, is do you have the confidence and the ability to hold somebody accountable to words they said earlier in that conversation, but ultimately hold them accountable to making a decision that is going to better their life, their business, or their future. And that person will probably come back and thank you for it 30, 60, 90 days down the road when they see the results and the ramifications. So that's the biggest difference in a very short summation, is if you can hold somebody accountable to making a decision based off of their wants, goals, desires, needs, etc., and really push them to making a decision that they're going to come back and thank you for, that's a really good rep, but it's also a good influential skill to be able to have. So that's kind of one of the big difference I noticed. It's like people that will go a little farther and push and hold somebody accountable, or I'll get a rep that the guy says, no, I'm not interested. Okay, cool. Click and hang up. And they're fine with that. I'm like, wait a minute. You have to go a little deeper than that, right? So excellent. Jesse, would you like to drop anything here?
Yeah, like I said, guys, just honestly, when you get the objections, it's a good thing. It allows you to isolate them, understand it. And then if there's a way to present something that's going to overcome that, and the prospect provides that information back to you to make it make sense, then that's what we're trying to do. You know, I would highly suggest leaning into objections. Honestly, I ask questions that are going to give me an objection or like an absolute hard yes. So if you're able to do that efficiently, have a conversation in the best interest of that other person, and really just drive it down to solutions based off what they said and what they need, and provided that you or your company can provide that, you're doing yourself a disservice by not holding them accountable and not helping them move forward. Not only is it going to benefit them if you believe in what you're doing and they believe in what they're doing, it's also going to allow you to grow your business, or again, your financials. And if again, it's for the business as well. So it's a win-win-win all around. And if you believe in what you're teaching and what you're doing to that prospect who's now a client, they can go out and do the exact same and continue to grow that and pay it forward. So again, it's not a money grab, it's not a money dash, but at the same time, you do have to hold your ground at times and hold people accountable, because if not, you are the problem in this industry. If you do not help people get out of their own way and do what is best for them based off of the answers they've given you, facts, figures, then you are the issue, not them. So that's where this space fails, is people don't actually help people do what is best for them because they don't have the understanding or the skill set to do it. And that's exactly what Ray and I teach, and we absolutely love and drive home.
Sorry, I was muted there myself. Because my dog was barking. But yeah, thanks again, everybody, for jumping on. I again appreciate everybody's time. And I hope we delivered a lot of value. It sounds like that from the feedback we got. Last thing to say is hopefully I get to speak with some of you guys in a little bit of a one-on-one capacity again. And really, I would say it's really three different types of people that we help best. Not to say we don't help people outside these parameters. People looking for make money at home and business startup opportunities. People that are business owners that offer a great service or have a skill set or an expertise, but they just don't know how to do sales and close deals and package and price their offer. And then people looking to be a high ticket sales rep for another company that has a vetted offer, that's doing all the lead gen and the marketing. And you don't need any of that stuff. As I mentioned in one of my posts this week, one of the greatest things about being a rep is, unlike a consultant, an agency, a coach, you don't need that skill set to do the fulfillment. Once the deal's closed, you collect your commission and the business owner delivers the result. So it's great, but you also got to get in an offer that you can stand behind, that's reputable, that you feel good about selling, that you have confidence in. And that's what we help you expedite and find. We're very good at weeding those out, because there's a lot of the ones, as well as we talked about earlier, in terms of working with clients, over promising and under delivering. There's a lot of offers and businesses that overpromise and underdeliver to their sales reps as well. So we try to help people expedite and skip the painful, frustrating gaps really that are in those three phases. So hope to speak to you on a quick little 15-minute one-on-one, give you some advice, free resources, work with you closer, and help you all hit your goals. Enjoy your day, the rest of your week, and feel free to reach out to anybody